hockey. Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
Yes, it is Judd's Hockey Show because for Judd's Hockey Show, JHS, much like with our friend Jesse Pierce's Bar Down Beauty Show, there is no off season. There is no rest. There is only hockey talk, which, of course, we all love. Judd, Declan, and Jesse Pierce, without power from her home, is actually, though savvy enough, and I'm very impressed, that you don't just say, you know what, I'm out. You don't say, I'm tapping out, that's it. You say, I got a solution. So from her backyard, I would imagine, Jesse Pierce joins us. Thank you for the effort.
Dedication, always. You know, I'm always looking out for you guys. Highlight of my week, joining Judd's Hockey Show. So I'm just happy to be here.
Well, we are pleased to have you, and what we are about to embark on is a discussion of the Wild schedule, which came out a couple weeks ago. We have not talked about it at all so far, but before we do that, I want to talk about my friends at Miller Marine and Power Lodge. You know what? The dog days of summer, folks, won't last, and neither will the inventory. So do us both a favor and go from floor to shore today with the iconic, right there, Bennington pontoon and tri-toon packages at doorbuster pricing at Miller Marine in St. Cloud and all the Power Lodge locations. Get your first cruise in by sunset, but don't wait on this limited time in July special offer. Financing is available on approved credit. Freight and prep are not included in the packages. Just head to millermarine.com and powerlodge.com and snag yourself some throttle therapy. We all need it this time of year. Throttle therapy is the best, and you can find that, again, Miller Marine and Power Lodge. Okay, Declan, I'm going to throw the ball to you here because you're the one that has come to me the past 2 weeks and been like, I want to talk about the schedule. And I sense some Declan angst here.
I do have angst.
It's ordinarily Judd angst, but
Yes.
I don't have any angst here. And I mean, Jesse's sitting outside in now a gorgeous day, so she's probably not too angsty. So, Declan, take the ball, or take the puck in this case, and run with it. Where does your feelings about the schedule come from?
So I know the XL Energy Center is one of like the busiest, low-key, like one of the busiest arenas in North America. It is. There's a concert, there's a hockey game, there's tournaments, there's so many damn things going on at this arena all the dang time. But the bone I have to pick is the longest homestand for this team is not until mid-March, March 23rd through the 6th. That is the longest homestand. It's 6 games between St. Louis, San Jose, Vegas, Ottawa, Colorado, Winnipeg. But you will not have a very lengthy homestand until late March. That is one bugaboo I have. The other bugaboo I have is the back-to-backs. There are 15 sets of back-to-backs for the Wild this season. They played 12 last year. I believe the Wild have the most, if not the second most amount of back-to-backs in the NHL regular season this year. They are back-to-back on the road 9 times. They're a road game followed by a home game. Let's see here. 3 times. They're back-to-back at home only once, and they're home followed by a road game twice. So a lot of back-to-backs on the road side of things. The schedule makers so far, in my opinion, are not favoring the Minnesota Wild. That's my first take.
Jesse?
I don't look at the schedule until I have to, only because I refuse to believe hockey season is coming. I think Jake Middleton asked me last night. He's like, so we'll see you, I don't know. I'm like, probably in a month. I don't want to see you until I have to see you. Let's be honest. No, I would agree. I mean, it's funny because February, as a person that lives at the XL Energy Center, generally every February when they have an insane 9-game homestand, I'm okay. Now, for you fans, I do feel you, right? It's a little tough to have to wait until March, especially when March is a chaotic hockey month in general. Like, I can't believe that it's happening in March, considering you've got the Boys State High School tournament, you've got NCHC, you've got Big Ten, I think, trying to make its comeback to the X as well. A whole lot going on to be considered, and that's just on the hockey sports side of things. But the back-to-backs, they do get me. Not only do they make my job harder when they're at home because they don't have the morning skate, we can't get a good groove going. But especially, again, these are all selfish points, guys. I care about what matters to me, and that's my problem with the back-to-backs. But no, it just seems unfair. And the way that some of the back-to-backs are designed too, again, the NHL generally overlooks Minnesota, generally considers Minnesota flyover state, like most.
Oh, no.
Did we lose?
Jess.
No.
Did we lose the
Again,
Jess?
the power's out at her house. She's trying very hard. So no complaints here, but I think she just dropped off. Wait, I think she's back now.
Sorry,
Jesse?
had a phone call coming in.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
That'll do it, too, if
Yeah.
she's on her
Okay.
phone.
That'll
That's-
do it. Yeah.
So as far as the schedule goes from the Wild perspective, I'm with Dex on the back-to-backs. Like they happen, but this seems like a lot, and they are a pain. And it makes it tough, especially in a league that, to their credit, is very resistant to resting guys. So, like, you don't, if this was the NBA, 9 back-to-backs, you'd be like, okay, well, you're just not going to see player X, Y, or Z in the second or first game. Hockey, to their credit, does not do that. I don't mind the lack of a long homestand because I have never thought personally, and this is from like the team perspective. So, like, if I was Bill Guerin or Dean, was that an 8-game homestand in February of last year, Jesse? Am I recalling that
9.
correctly? 9. Okay,
It was either 8 or 9, but I know in the past we've had 9-game where I'm like literally there every other night. It's a lot.
Number one. I want those spread out. I never want a long, like 6 to me is a lot, but I'll take 6. Anything above 6, I absolutely hate. And if I am management or a coach, I hate it more. I don't want my players getting comfortable. Like, I don't want them like when you're home for 9 games, now you just fall into a routine of, well, I'm home. I don't want super long road trips, and I don't want super long homestands. I want, in my opinion, ideal homestand, 3 or 4 games. Ideal road trip, 3 or 4 games. Long enough to know that you're in season, but it's not obnoxious. And so I think that becomes, Declan, as Jesse, I think, dropped off again. That becomes, to me, an important thing. But I am totally Team Declan on back-to-backs. Back-to-backs are a complete pain in the butt.
Yeah, they always seem to also line up, again, selfishly. They always line up against Wolves games. So then, like, Wild and Wolves fans, and then also both fans are like, are we on Bally Sports North? Are we on Plus tonight? Are we on ESPN Plus? Where the heck are we? That's also true, too. I didn't think of that. But just the amount of back-to-backs, and I know they're also going to Europe, which you probably can get into here. But they're flying about 4,000 miles more than they did last season. So last year, and credit to the Wild's PR staff who puts all of these insane nuggets together. So the Wild will travel 42,000 air miles during the 23-24 season. Last year, they traveled 38,000 air miles. Now, again, they are going to Europe. Right. So there is a little bit of an extra there, and that does kind of make sense. But that's 4,000 more miles in the air than they were used to last year. And I know some people think, oh, you're on an airplane. What's so complaining about that? If you're traveling and you're in a motel not a motel, a hotel. Things have gotten really tight. No. Things have gotten really tight for the Wild's financial thing with these Parise Suter buyouts. They're at Motel 6s, for God's sakes. That's a lot of travel. That's a lot of different stays. And just in general, I just think that this schedule is set up pretty brutally for the Wild fans. This could just be me looking for things to talk about in the dog days of July and the NHL offseason. But when I looked I've been begging Judd for the last 2 weeks to talk about this.
I like the homestand.
For this exact reason.
Homestand. I like the home.
Yeah.
I like this.
I mean, as somebody
really
that gets paid literally for covering home games, of course I would. If you want to toss 50 games at me, that'd be great. But that's just obviously not how it works. But I agree. I like having it broken up a little bit more. It's a little nice to get those breaks in. And I think to Judd's point, the players don't get too comfortable. It's nice sleeping at your house. It's nice. You got the kids running at you all the time. Wifey's begging you to do things. All of those are true factors into staying into game mindset, especially when the Wild don't practice nearly as often as they maybe should. Those guys are home quite a bit more, which can change things very quickly.
So that was going back to the run in 2003 to the playoffs. Jacques Lemaire, at that time, longtime coach, and who had won multiple Stanley Cups as a player and a coach with the Devils. I think we had gotten to the second round or so, and Jacques put the team up at the St. Paul Hotel. And he was asked about, well, you're in town here. Why would you put the team up in a hotel? And to parrot what Jesse just said, Jacques said exactly this. He said, because when the players are home, you get the wife saying, I changed the diaper last night. You're changing the diaper tonight. The garbage has to go out. And it wasn't,
You're not going to do it in Jacques voice? You're not going to
his
do it in
point-
the Jacques Lemaire voice either?
His
That
point,
was close.
no,
I
that's as
feel like
close
he
as I
was
can
trying.
get. Yeah, I was trying a little bit. But his point was, and this is why I would literally love to put my team in a hotel when the playoffs start, home or road. I would love to sequester them. I would love to say, you know what? You got all summer long, hang with family. That's awesome. But yeah, when you are home for a very long period of time, it starts to become your, job. And then you're going home to your family and the kids. And God bless them. Love kids. Love the family. But I want your focus on hockey. So I want to keep you as uncomfortable as possible without it becoming a problem. And so the schedule, I think, is fine for that. As far as the games in Europe, do you guys like this or not? And I know that each team has to do this, so it's not like I don't think it's a volunteer basis. But Jesse, starting with you, do you like this trip that they're going to take in November to play Ottawa and Toronto?
I don't like that it's in November, and I don't like it just feels kind of right as the season's starting to get going, right? I mean, you're still early on enough where things go completely awry for whatever reason. But I'd rather it be something during the preseason, which I know they do different situations like that. It just feels weird to have it in November. I enjoy growing the game across all continents, everywhere that you can possibly do it. So I think that's huge. And obviously Minnesota has a huge Swedish connection too. So that'll be kind of fun for those guys, I imagine. But yeah, it just feels kind of like a weird time to take quote unquote a break. I know it's not a break, but it's just, you're playing Ottawa and Toronto teams that are in the other Eastern Conference. So it doesn't really make a difference. I would say keep it to a preseason thing, or don't do it in November. That's my biggest gripe with it. I like the exposure for the NHL. Don't like it in November.
I mean, a 10 a.m. puck drop, though, against Ottawa, right? I mean, that's going to be great. Little
8
Saturday
against
morning
Toronto.
hockey. I love that. 8 a.m.?
No, they play the Sens at 10 a.m. on
Oh, that's
Saturday,
right.
November 18th, and then they come back the next day and play at 8 against
7.
the Leafs.
It's 7. It's
Oh,
7
okay.
a.m. Central Time. So they'll play.
boy.
They'll play. You have to wake up real early to watch.
I don't like this.
How
like
about we
the
just
10
go
a.m.
over
start.
there? Could we just go over to Sweden?
JHS
Or-
to
I
Europe.
don't want to go. No. Here's
Okay,
what
well,
bugs
I'll
me.
go.
My passport expired. I can't go.
Yeah. Jesse
I'm dead
goes.
serious.
Jesse
go.
goes.
Fine.
Here's what I don't like. If I'm correct, and correct me if I say this wrong, but according to the schedule I am looking at, both of those games technically Wild home games?
Yeah, I think so, right?
One and one.
Which one?
The Toronto game is a home game. The Ottawa
Okay.
game is a road game.
I hate this because we lose Toronto coming here then, right?
Yes.
Because that's your home game against Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Toronto Maple Leafs, I mean, the original 6 to me, I love those games. And when Toronto comes to town, it's a ton of Toronto fans. It's a lot of fun. Oftentimes, if it's a Saturday game, it's a Hockey Night in Canada game. And now that game is going to be played in the morning in Europe. No. As a hockey fan, I'm not even speaking as a jaded journalist. I'm saying as a hockey fan, there are certain, and I'm a total geek here. I fully admit to that, okay? But Jesse, aren't there certain uniforms that show up where you're like, this is pretty cool?
Yes, absolutely.
Montreal,
Like
Toronto.
yeah.
I want to see Toronto.
Montreal, but here's my gripe with those teams. They bring a whole slew of media with them, and it just takes extra long for
That's
me to get
also
into
true.
the scrums, right? Like, I'll counter you with
Jesse.
that.
This is
It's for me, selfishly. I want to get in there, get my interview, and be done with it. I don't need to do the French.
You want the
version to
Kings in
Montreal. I
town.
don't need to do it. Yes, exactly. Even
you
the
want the
Islanders don't travel.
I love how
many.
we have hijacked this into me just completely bitching about the amount of back-to-backs and
I'm
games.
a hockey fan. I'm speaking for the fans.
Jesse's selfishly like, God, my work schedule now is going to be like way more difficult. And even speaking of that, so they
And Judd
even
wants the original 6-pack.
and Judd wants the
I
original
want Toronto
6.
here. I love Toronto coming here.
It is July. It is late July for the NHL offseason. They also, on the schedule here notes, they break down the games by the day. There are only 3 Friday night home games for the Wild in this season. So of the 40 games, because the one's obviously in Europe, only 3 Friday night games. There are 10 Saturday night games and then 6 Sunday games as well. So the majority of their games coming on Thursday and Saturday of the schedule, which I believe is typically pretty normal.
Yes.
And I don't believe they've announced the TV portion of the schedule yet, so I don't know what games they'll exclusively be, on ESPN, TNT, etc. But it is interesting, just 3 home games on Friday night, but there are 7 Friday night road games for the Wild. So of the 10 times they play on Friday this season, only 3 of them are in St. Paul at the X.
I mean,
So
that means we get to enjoy it from our couch with
Yeah.
a beverage of choice anyway. So we got that going
Mhm.
for us, Judd.
So I can tell you how this works. I think this dates back, unless it's been changed, to when the North Stars were here. Teams can put in for certain nights.
Yep.
Like the Wild,
can.
I want to say when the Wild started, they did have a decent amount of Friday night home games because they couldn't get Saturday games. But as their seniority grew, and the North Stars were the exact same way, they almost never played on Friday nights. They played at home on Saturdays a ton. So I actually like that. My only complaint about the Sunday is when they play 5 o'clock games in football season.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, come on. I love hockey, but I can't. It's not like I can be like, I'm going to duck out of the Vikings game to go, So my only complaint is Sunday games in football season, I would prefer on any night other than Sunday. But the Saturday 10 home games and 11 Thursday home games, I actually like a lot as far as the day flow goes for the Wild.
And I do know the Wild have talked in the past that they try to avoid Sunday games when the Vikings schedule is released because of that, right? Like I remember I watched the Minneapolis Miracle at the X because they were hosting Vancouver and it was a whole thing, right? So it can create some of those cool moments, but I think they've recognized that too. And I'm sure that's across the board, any team that has an NFL team in their city too. But yeah, and then Sundays in general, like Sunday afternoons, I don't want to do anything, whether it's football season or not, right? Again, this is Selfish Jesse coming out. So it's kind of a drag to go to a 2 p.m. game. There's no morning skate, just right in the middle of the darn day when I have other things I could be doing. I really love my job, guys. I promise. I just, it's off season.
You just don't like the schedule because it's not conducive to you, including
it's not conducive to mine.
Including teams that bring too much of the press corps with them, which make it a pain in the ass to get to coaches. There's one more important thing, at least unless Dex has more. There's one more important thing that we have not touched on yet, at least completely, as far as how it's going to impact the Wild season. But before we do that, I want to talk to you guys about my friends at Finch Home Solutions. And right now, Jesse Pierce, who doesn't have power, is saying, Finch Home Solutions, aren't those the people that do electronics? Aren't those the people that can come to your house and fix anything big or small? I'm talking about rewiring your house. That's a huge thing to replacing an outlet. It's small. But Cody and his team at Finch Home Solutions do it all. They do it well. They're courteous. They're fast. They're incredibly efficient. They will get the job done. And guess what? They're also Vikings fans. So if you are a fan of the Purple, you certainly will have plenty to talk about while the Finch team makes any fixes around your house. And remember, the electronics of the home, those ain't DIY, folks. When that van shows up, you know you're going to get top-notch help. This is not a do-it-yourself project. These guys know exactly what they're doing. They do a great job. 612-357-2604 or finchhomesolutions.com. Finchhomesolutions.com, actually a form on the site that you can fill out. They will come out to your house. They will take care of everything and anything, and you will leave the process very satisfied. Finchhomesolutions.com. Okay, I got something else I think actually is interesting here, and it's not a big deal right now, but it could be. The longest, and I think Dex did say this, but the longest road trip is 5 games at Chicago, Colorado, Vegas, San Jose, and the Kings. More importantly, though, Jesse, it's April 7th through the 15th. And I believe that leaves the Wild with 1 home game left then in the 82-game season. So if the Wild is up against it playoff-wise, and far be it from me to say that they won't be, that road trip, which at least when you look at those teams, at least a couple right now difficult teams, that road trip could go a long way towards deciding if this team gets in the playoffs or misses the playoffs.
Oh, 100% on paper, that's a tough road schedule for Minnesota. You got the defending Stanley Cup champs. You got the Connor Bedard-led Chicago. You've got the Avs who are always bringing it. I mean, it's a tough go. And as I think we've discussed on the show and it's been discussed throughout the offseason, Minnesota's going to have a heck of a year. I say that as a struggle of a year, rather, not they're going to be off the chains. It's going to be that bubble season. It's going to come down. I would not be surprised, Judd and Declan, if that final home game, we have to wait and see what the Wild's destiny is for the playoffs, if they're in or if they're out, if we have to wait and find that out at that home game, depending on how they perform.
Yeah, they'll finish the regular season at home against the Kraken before playing those five brutal road games against Leash. Chicago, who should be better. Colorado, who's always good. Vegas, who just won the Cup. San Jose, the Kings. We'll kind of wait and see at least on how good both
Kings might be
teams
tough.
will be. Kings will be good.
Yeah.
Kings should be good.
Sharks might suck, but the Kings might be good.
But yeah, it'll be an interesting thing. They're also playing they're playing their schedule in 190 days. So from October 12th to April 18th. Last year they played their schedule in 183 days. So again, there's just more.
You think they're being squeezed, don't you?
They are.
You
They are
think
being
you hate
squeezed.
Bettman.
Bettman
You're hating on
squeezed them.
Bettman. Even I'm not hating on Bettman this much.
They squeeze them, man. They squeeze. I think this is a brutal schedule for the Wild. I'm just even look, 33 games remaining after the All-Star
worked up.
game.
You're really pissed.
Only 15 at home, 18 on the road. I'm telling you, man, the schedule makers aren't doing the Wild any favors this year. I'll just say that. They aren't. They are not.
Could be a year to get a good draft pick, you guys. Who knows?
That's also true.
I mean, if you miss the playoffs. I've got one more schedule topic, but before I get to that, Declan, it's not hockey season yet, but it is 1,000% in the midst of golf season, the Open Championship going on right now. Why don't you tell the people what they can see next week?
Yeah, they can see the 3M Open. Some of those guys will be here as well. You get to see Tony Finau defend his title. You got Billy Horschel, who's a commit. Matsuyama is obviously committed as well at the 3M Open. You go to 3mopen.com/tickets. Go park yourself at hole 18. Watch all these pros hit it in the water just like Jesse and I do. When we play golf, they're just like us, Jess. They're just like us. They're dunking balls in the water.
I don't go in the water, so that's not my problem.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good luck with that, though.
I'm a shanker into the water most times. The water's to my right, the hole's in front, and I somehow go to the right. So I know exactly that game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you find the trees.
I'd rather find the
fine.
trees than the drink.
Well, that's true. Yeah, you lose your ball. That's
Exactly
that's
right.
$3 into the water.
And
right
a stroke, too.
Don't like that. Well, I don't count that. I just
No.
Well, of course not. You just kick the ball right back
Then
on.
it didn't happen. Go to 3mopen.com/tickets to get yours today.
All right, last thing. This is not an issue that that hockey has to deal with yet, but the NBA came out, I think it was last week, and said that they are going with an in-season tournament. Now, it's not going to cause a lot more games. They're actually going to take regular season games and just put them in the tournament, but it will play out with, I think, the last 3 games, if I'm not mistaken, in Vegas at a neutral site, including the championship. I think Gary Bettman was asked about this, and so far, the National Hockey League, and by the way, this is a tournament sport. Like, we've seen a ton of tournaments, but the National Hockey League saying they are not interested in going to something like that. We'll start with Jesse. Would you like to see the NHL adopt something like this? And again, not add a ton of games, but actually just incorporate it. So if, we're sitting in the press box side by side at the X, watching the Oilers and Wild play, it actually counts for more than just the points in that regular season game.
I don't know. I mean, I always like to consider things that are different, right? Like, it is always kind of fun for the NHL to try something new. I don't know if that's the route. I personally love like the home and home series situations, right? Like, I wish there were more of those because I think that creates that natural rivalry than even a tournament would. And I think in hockey, especially, you want those rivalries. That makes the sport even more ignatic than anything, is when you have those just pure hatreds for each other because you're seeing each other all the time, which can be hard, right? I mean, certainly you have rivalries with your division, but I think those home and home series really make the difference. So I personally would like to see more of that as opposed to a full-on tournament. But you know what? Give it a shot, Bettman. See what happens. I mean, see how the NBA does it. If they fall on their face with it, then definitely steer clear.
It.
But let someone else be the guinea pig. But otherwise, I mean, maybe give it a whirl. But if it's on a neutral site too, that also takes away games and money for me, which again, as we've discussed, it's all about Jessie and how her job is affected. So then that's also a negative for me.
I love the idea of an in-season tournament, and I know the NBA is basically doing it for money too, so each player and team gets a little bit of scratch and coin, but I love the idea of if you win the tournament, then you're guaranteed at least a playoff spot. And then you can let the points and figure out how you do it from there, but you're guaranteed. Like in the NBA, we kicked around the idea you are guaranteed at least a play-in. Now, if you're above the play-in, you're fine. You'll be seated, but you are playing for something. You're not just playing for, I say it as a couple $1,000,000, but like you're not just playing for a small cash pool. You're playing for something more. So I would love to see something like that. And if you win the tournament, you're guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. You have to have some type of, in my opinion, incentive to make that happen.
I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sort of a cool thought. But I am with Jess 1,000% as the only person on this show who grew up in the old days of home and homes being like the North Stars and Blackhawks, Saturday night at the Met, Sunday at the stadium. And she's exactly right. I mean, the playoffs are the key, but once you've got that hatred starting to brew, a home and home where teams are sick of each other by the second game are just fantastic. But Dex, that's a good, I like the playoff intrigue there. Like
Yeah.
I like adding something just to spice things up. That's a good idea. I'm sure
It
they
makes
won't do
sure
it, but
that
it's a
you'll
good
get
idea.
like the best out of your guys, right? Like you said, the
Yeah.
players are going to go out there and try. I mean, you know how competitive hockey players are in general, or athletes, I guess, in general. But that would make it more interesting for me. I'd be more inclined to say yes to that if there were implications on the line like that.
Great job, Declan.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
you're welcome.
I'm sorry you're pissed off about the schedule.
Yeah, no, screw the
but
schedule.
Great job. Jesse, thank you so much. Hopefully the power comes back on at the estate soon. We will talk to you next week. And also, as always, check out Jesse and her cohorts on Bar Down Beauties as well. That's a great podcast. This is Judd. That is Declan. Declan, tell the people what they need to know before we leave.
Hit the subscribe button for daily Minnesota sports entertainment. This is Judd's Hockey Show. You can also find us on Apple, Spotify, the Score North app, Central Hub 2 for everything we do. And then leave a comment if you're as pissed off as me about the schedule. If you're thinking I'm completely overreacting.
Jesse's going to get a ton of crap in the comments about her job.
That's fine. And then you can crap on me for complaining that they have, to go 4,000 extra air miles.
I want the Maple Leafs.
And Judd wants
Just
an
give me the
original
damn
space
Give
team.
me Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. That's all I want.
Pass, shoot, score.